Hi everyone, welcome to another edition of the Lemnisk masterclass, where we talk to digital marketing experts and practitioners, professionals and entrepreneurs who work at the very edge of digital marketing innovation. Today, I'm super stoked to talk to Damandeep Singh Soni. Daman is a firebrand digital marketer, if I can call him that, who has spent the last decade in growth marketing leadership roles at Vcash, MobiKwik, Milkbasket. He has also had his own ventures, Planet GoGo, Percept Origin. Daman is currently Vice President Growth at Boat. To those who know him, he has an amazing sense of humor. Fewer still would know his solid skills as a DJ. I'll be talking to him about all things digital marketing and how customer data platforms can help drive growth. It's going to be a fun ride, so strap in. Daman, welcome and thanks for taking the time out.
Thanks, Subra, man. Always fun talking to you.
Yeah. I mean, I think we've been together in the industry for the last decade now. It's always been sort of fun just hanging out with you at all these events, forums, and just getting your perspective. So I do know that there's a lot that the audience can learn from your take. So yeah, really looking forward to this. Yeah.
Happy to hear you, man.
Yeah, let's just start with your, obviously you've been here in this digital marketing space for about a decade now. And I think it'll be just interesting to hear about your perspectives on how you've seen this whole space evolve. So maybe if you could just talk through your professional journey a little bit in this space and how you've seen sort of marketing technology evolve. And especially, I would like you to touch upon this aspect of growth and growth marketing that's emerged as a slightly more recent concept.
Sure. So I'll tell you a very interesting story. Back in 2012, I think, I used to run a digital marketing agency, PK Online, and we were talking to a client called Line, who I later joined as the India head after a couple of years. And we were trying to convince them to come to India. And they said, because messaging was just coming up, WhatsApp had just entered the market. And they put up a challenge to me. They said, you know what, Daman, get me 1 million users in a month, and then we'll talk. I spent, I think, around 12 to 15 lakhs, and we got 3 million users using Google. Now, if you can think of doing something like that today, I don't think using the same channel it is possible. But there were so many hacks available at that point in time because the app store was evolving, the ad formats were evolving. So the key takeaway for me over these years has been is at every point in time there are certain channels and hacks and ideas available to a marketer to able to grow rapidly, and that's the fun of this whole medium, right? In the digital space, there are new channels emerging almost every month, or a new ad format or a new tech emerging every month. And as a digital marketer, I've always kept myself in an experiment mode. I'm in a perpetual experiment, right? To see what's working. And so today, if I have to get 3 million users, I'll probably end up going to some other channel like a TikTok. So that's the interesting thing that's happened. The second major shift that I've seen is the evolution of technology. Here's an interesting story. The first app that we were working on, we actually had to write a whole lot of code to be able to send notifications, timely notifications, journey notifications, and the like. Today it's plug and play. Yeah. Today I just have to get one API integrated to another, call a webhook or something like that, and I'm good to go. And I spend more time on thinking the fun stuff to write to get the user to click to click and to engage. So while starting a business has become very easy, growing it has become equally difficult because there's that much more competition to everything that you're planning to do. So it's evolved in a whole lot of spaces. Also, if I look at the whole MarTech stack, I remember 2013, there were barely 15-20 companies, and out of that, 4 or 5 of them were Google or Facebook related companies. Today it's like a whole ocean by itself, so it's always fun to see what stock brinkers coming out on the martech side of things. So it's a fun place to be in. If you love to learn, if you love to experiment, I think there's no better place than this.
Absolutely. I think Scott Brinker's landscape on last count had what, 8,000?
Yeah, 20,000, sorry. Yeah.
20,000. Oh, yeah, of
Yeah,
course.
yeah.
So talk about growth. Like, what is, because I think growth marketing, though, of course, you could, different people have different interpretations of growth. But I think the term growth probably has taken off in the last maybe 5-6 years in a big way, right? So what does growth marketing really mean? And why do you need that sort of a function? So, and there are folks who would love to understand, okay, so, is it just conflated with marketing or is it different? So maybe just talk through a little bit of that.
It's good you brought that up, because I'm asked this question quite a lot of time. Are you a marketer? Are you a techie? I said I used to write code, but I also market. So here's the thing. If I look at marketing in a semantic sense, marketers typically have been asked to cater to the top of the funnel, which is user acquisition and activation. And after that, it's like the product guy's problem. You figure out whether the service is good, you figure out whether the packet of chips has nitrogen or chips in it, so on and so forth. But a growth marketer's job is entire funnel. So that's the primary difference that I define between growth and marketing. So marketing is a function of growth. I've had the luck to work with large companies and startups from cold start. Typically, a founder is a growth marketer. He has an insight that how he can modify the product or enhance the product so that it sells itself.
Yeah.
If I look at a framework to work with, on growth marketing has 4 pillars. Okay, there's organic growth, which is a function of your brand, SEO, ASO, and all that kind of stuff. There is paid growth, which we see a lot of marketers spend a lot of time in, which is user acquisition, TVCs, ATL, BTL, a lot of stuff on digital, on Google, Facebook, Instagram, social channels. Then there's product growth. Product growth is basically how can I build growth loops within my product so that when one user comes in, he's able to bring the next 10 users.
Yeah.
When he performs a particular action, it creates a feedback loop for other users to come onto the platform, so on and so forth. Which also so the product function works very closely with the martech stack. Okay, and I think the growth product manager needs to really have a fine balance between how he implements the tech and how he's working with the paid and the organic. And the fourth part, what a lot of guys miss out on, is the partnerships. So there's growth, so there's organic, paid, product, and partnerships. And partnerships doesn't mean I'll put your brand on my bottle and you put my logo on your app. It goes far deeper than that. It says how can 2 different organizations who have a huge amount of user base leverage each other user base, either via cross-selling or by delivering value to the users. And there's multiple ways to do it. We've done that in the past at MobiQuick. We're doing that at Boat also right now. Stuff I can't talk about, but for example, in MobiQuick, we went around partnering with Ola in a very different way than how Paytm partnered with Uber. So that was like a growth hack for us, which cost us millions of transactions. So a growth marketer needs to look across this whole 4 pillars and then actually come up with a growth strategy. So there are going to be multiple things, right? There's no silver bullet, that I've learned. There's no 1 million users in a month kind of a thing anymore. So all of these things together, they push up the growth curve.
Interesting. And I think it's especially interesting to look at the partnership and product growth that you spoke of, because most people think of growth in a fairly paid or organic kind of way. Getting this. So talk about the viral loop that you spoke of, and I think you also in some of your blogs and forums where you've spoken of North Star metric that some of these companies need to have if you need to really grow effectively, right? So does it all tie into the North Star metric as well? How does that happen?
Yeah, so as a person who looks after growth, I one of my key things is to really think a lot about how to define the North Star metric, because the North Star metric is the value that you deliver to your users. It's
Yeah.
not revenue. It's never revenue. Revenue is what you get in return, right? So how do I define that value which encapsulates the entire organization to work as one? Once you're able to define that and then break that into smaller metrics, like smaller KPIs, then it starts becoming very meaningful for everyone in the organization. And everyone is a growth marketer then. Even the person doing a delivery at the end of the day is a growth marketer. For example, at Milk Basket, I envisioned our North Star metric is number of items delivered to a user on time, which encapsulates number of orders, which encapsulates size of the basket, and encapsulates operations so that the order is delivered on time. Because if groceries are not coming at 7 o'clock in the morning, your kid is not drinking milk, there's huge dissonance, right?
Yeah.
So that kind of tied everyone in, and even the ops person would try to figure out how to use tech to solve to create a faster delivery cycle. Now, in terms of creating loops, uh, uh, growth is not a linear problem. Okay, and if you have that paradigm in place, then you need to start figuring out how do I create systems and processes wherein engines start getting formed, growth engines start getting formed, so that your company is propelled. So my at any point in time strategy is we start experimenting,
Mhm.
we do stuff manually, we put a little bit of money to the problem, and then if it's working, then we double down, then we automate the heck out of it and see how it grows. So at different stages, the growth tactics are going to be different. When you're starting on a cold start, do things that do not scale.
Yeah.
It's perfectly fine. Call up every user that you want, lay out the red carpet. But as you're scaling up, that laying of the red carpet must be automated.
Yeah.
Right? You should have a welcome emailer. If required, you need to have a hamper set in. So for example, at Milk Basket, we changed the whole referral loop. Typically, if you start telling anyone referral, you start, okay, the person who refers, what incentive do I give him? Okay. We often forget that incentive is not only monetary incentive. People also want social incentives.
Social
Right?
incentives, true.
And for us at Milk Basket, for example, we would only service certain buildings. We would not even service full Gurgaon. So we wanted more and more people in a building. Okay. And if I refer to you in a building, people will think I'm trying to mooch off 100 rupees just by referring you, which doesn't look very classy, right?
Yeah.
So we changed the entire referral program to say, if I refer Subra gets 500 rupees worth of groceries. I don't get anything. And in that initial 500, we also say, this is a housewarming gift from Daman. So that gives me social benefit, which
Yeah.
says that, okay, I've referred you, I know something which makes me sound intelligent or make me sound helpful. And once we started doing that, the referral route just skyrocketed, right, for us. And we didn't have to put up, so we needed to just get 5% of the user base in a building to reach the 20 to 25% using these referral loops. So stuff like this is what a growth marketer keeps on thinking. And it's not that we got it right the first time.
Yeah.
We tried giving the user 2,000 bucks also for referring, but then when we got deeper into the problem, we felt that this is something that will get a solution to us.
Absolutely. Yeah. So all the things you've spoken about so far, growth and sort of, automating some of the red carpet, ideas. I guess it all eventually comes down to understanding your users better and better, and maybe as close to an individual as possible, right? And fundamentally to deliver a great experience to them. And I think today, compared to a decade back, and that's something you talked about as well. I guess as marketeers, everybody's spoiled for choice, right? In terms of the sheer number of options available to you, right? But ultimately, you need to get the right stack in place. So let's talk about the Martech stack, and what's your sort of recommended approach to folks that are starting to think about setting up a customer experience ecosystem to drive growth. What's your recommendation? What sort of framework should they use, and how should they go about deciding how to build this?
That's a pretty interesting question, because I'm kind of married to the MarTech stack, yeah, because I mean, typically the kind of teams I've run are very small teams, and we leverage technology a lot, right? And what my typical framework has been is go outside in, start from top of the funnel, and then start building all the stuff in. Because the one thing that binds the entire marketing stack together is data.
Yeah.
Right. So I need to start figuring out where the user is coming from, who this user is. And once I have that initial data, only then I can go on to personalize his experience and talk to that individual that you particularly spoke about. So you start putting the telemetry in from day one.
Yeah.
Okay, and start seeing patterns, start seeing how the user is coming in, what the flow is. Again, in today's world, it's not a linear flow in terms of doing a purchase. If someone has to buy an earphone, he'll do 10 different actions rather than the IDA approach, what we learned in Kotler, right? So for me to be able to tailor the customer experience, right, I need to have the telemetry right. For me, be able to run A/B tests and experimenting, I need to have the data. I need to have the data set correctly. So I usually start with a lot of attribution tech to begin with, right? And after that, we build a lot of telemetry for the entire user journey, and then we start building out the whole marketing automation platform. So for me, it's usually the approach that I typically follow. And what we also do is we draw out ideal reports that we need to see to take decisions. So this is something which I found very interesting in India specifically. We love data, but we don't know what to do with it. Right? So I've seen a lot of founders ask for a ton of reports, but there's no. My first question is, what is the business decision you're going to get out of reading a report like this? And then we try to ease off the requirement of the data analyst team and the data engineering team to figure out what exactly needs to be done. Now, in terms of the MarTech stack, right? If we look at the funnel approach, right? There are a few parameters that you need to look at. One is what you want to measure. Second is why you want to measure, and third is what is the tech you're going to be using to measure. And I've seen multiple approaches being followed, where people rip and replace the entire thing, or people start building small things and then they take, after 2 years down the line, they rip and replace. The good thing today is there is a lot of these companies structure data in a very good way. Okay, which are able to, so you're able to port from one system to the other. And CDPs, for example, play a very key role in that. If I have a central repository from which anyone, so it's like a data bus, right? Anyone can come in and pluck out data from that and get this life going. That is an ideal case scenario. And like, just before we started, I said, that's something I would like to have at a given point in time. But the kind of companies I work with, it's always we're always building, as we are going. So it's always changing the wheels of the bus while it's running. But I think a steady state scenario would be wherein we have a central data repository and we can just plug and play a lot of marketing technology and solutions over there.
Got it. It's super interesting to sort of understand your framework, because you start attribution first. You really try to understand who's converting. I think that is the, growth is entirely structured around understanding who are these people who are buying, converting, and how are they coming, and what is the attribution. And then you work your way all the way towards marketing automation. Because for most people, for many people, it starts the other way around. If you think of how can I start the flows, but how can you really automate this flow if you don't know who are the people who are buying in the first place or converting in the first place, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you spoke of CDP, and that was my nice segue into CDPs. So of course, CDPs have obviously come to the fore in the last couple of years as a very sort of big piece of technology, right? And I think one place where I heard you say is that you need to get the foundational elements right before you go for a CDP. Although my personal take has been that if data is important, then there has to be a foundational element that brings that together and sort of really stitches everything together. And CDP is that foundational element, right? But what sort of piqued your, I know you've written a couple of blogs about CDPs as well. What piqued your interest in CDPs, and why do you believe that Do you believe that's the future, or do you believe it's just one more element in the stack, or what's your take on that?
So my story with the CDP is very interesting. I actually stumbled upon this whole this whole tech. So I've been a part of this whole Martech journey since early days, right? And a lot of this innovation has been happening in the valley, right? In terms of data-driven architectures and data-driven decision making and growth teams. Frankly, that whole culture came in from there. So when I started first looking at a CDP, it was like an aha moment for me, because here is something which is marrying my first party data with third party data, which is something, it just hits you saying that, okay, this is exactly what I want, right? I can do my lookalikes pretty awesomely. I can target these people when they're not on my site, and that too with a personalized solution. So that's where I discovered this whole concept of CDP. But for me, the more important thing was, how can various systems in my company use them? Because gone are the days when we used to use one SAP system for the whole organization, right? Right now, we are using a lot of point solutions for a lot of problems, and I think that's the way it's going to be, right?
Yeah.
There is this whole consumerization of SaaS, where you just put in your credit card, get an HRMS, get going, and do a lot of stuff. Similarly for marketing technology, right? We like a piece of lead management software. We just put in a card, get it on, and start going. The more a CDP integrates with all these systems, and I think they are the ones who are trying to solve this problem of creating this entire data bus, the easier it becomes. Otherwise, I'll have to start using stuff like Zapier, which is good to begin with for a cold start, but not good enough to scale. You have to have an elegant, scalable solution at a point in time. So over a period of time, I've kind of used one of the systems as my de facto CDP. I put it that way. Typically, it's been a marketing automation suite, which, okay, you've got a lot of data, let's get it on with it. But obviously, this is not a CDP in a true sense, because they have webhooks for, let's say, a Google or a Facebook, but not for not for a DMP that they can plug into. So that's the kind of broken solutions that I've typically used till date. But I understand that for a CDP to be successful, right, we need to use the whole third party data more efficiently, and that's a scale problem, right, to solve. Because like I mentioned, like early on at board, right now we know there is enough scale to be achieved from the social and the Googles of the world, right? Once we hit sort of a plateau over there, that's when I want to start using third party data to further scale far more.
Interesting. That's very interesting. So one of the things I wanted to ask about, which is something that I ask all the guests who come on this masterclass, is, and it's the one thing that probably nobody wants to talk about, but unfortunately we all have to, COVID-19. So what's been your perspectives from the pandemic? What does it mean, especially for growth marketers, in terms of some of the important learnings that you would have?
So for a growth marketer, it's kind of been an awakening. Let me put it this way, because for the first time, a lot of the ATL mediums were shut down, right? From the marketing perspective, there's no point putting an ad in a paper, because it wasn't going anywhere. Pun intended. There was not a lot of TV ads that were being done because of pricing issues, right? So what do? So you go back to the drawing board and you see how I can sweat the asset. Companies which had invested in MarTech stacks, who had the growth first approach, really did well. Companies which did not have this said, okay, you know what? Our CMO should now start becoming a CIO also. He needs to start learning tech. So for a growth marketer, this was a gold mine. Okay, folks who were into retention marketing, who were into journey campaigns, who are making data more malleable, those guys saw a field day. They finally got to know that, okay, they finally got a buy-in with the management. So one of the major issues that I've always faced while getting MarTech or marketing automation implemented is getting a stakeholder buy-in.
Yeah.
The CTO usually still says, I can make this at home.
I can make it at home. Yeah.
Yeah. So, so and the finance head or the founder usually says, my data is going out, right?
Yeah.
These are the two things. And but now when the CIO says, okay, I can make it at home, and he realizes that to build a world-class solution, there is a learning curve involved, right?
Yeah.
And it's going to be more expensive. I would rather put my tech bandwidth on making the core product. So again, a lot of folks who were in the MarTech side of things, they have come into the forefront saying that, you know what, we know a plug-and-play solution which we can go live in like 24 hours, not 2 months or not 2 weeks. So that is one revelation, and I've got a lot of calls from different founders and friends saying that, is the solution good? Is it really what they say it is? Because my CIS is, this is something which is readily available. And then, you have to tell them, no, there's a lot of science, tech, IP involved in trying to match data, in trying to automate, in trying to deliver a notification. So it's been a really fun time from a marketing perspective, marketing automation, and a growth marketing perspective. The other thing is, because some channels were closed, management has been open to trying out new channels.
Yeah. True.
Yeah, so that's pretty awesome. So people who were not using certain, let's even go to something as simple as a digital marketer who's using Google. Google itself gives you 6 to 7 channels, right? They were just using 2 or 3. They've started experimenting with newer channels, and they've said, okay, you know what, this kind of works for us. Okay, folks have started now investing in content marketing also, in a very meaningful way, rather than saying, let's do a blog a day. So stuff like this. So I'm seeing a huge shift into in the way management is thinking about how marketing needs to be done. Okay, it's not always now a money first approach, which for me is pretty awesome, because I've always worked for the underdog. For me, it's always been, okay, we have less money, how do we go up against a giant? So it's a very interesting problem solving time for everyone.
Absolutely. And I think one of the things that you said, which I have seen repeat over and over and again the last 6 months, is people who were prepared digitally, right? Who had all those, sort of their MarTech stack and digital sort of worked out. They thrived. And all the people who were sort of halfway there or weren't there or weren't thinking aggressively enough about digital, invariably they struggled during the pandemic. And I think, if anything, some of those folks and people, the cliche term that I hear is digital transformation has accelerated by 3 years in sort of 3 months. That is so true. I mean, as much as it's a cliche, it's so true, because that's exactly what we saw happening in the pandemic, right?
Yeah, I mean, the amount of CIOs who've called me saying that, do you say literally for this thing, do you have any guy who can implement marketing automation for me? It's not even funny. And these are not just startups; these are huge financial companies which are saying, we need to do all this.
Yeah.
And then you realize, when you talk to these big companies, they were just working off Excel. Okay.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
my marker to figure out whether you can automate marketing is couple of things. Does your marketing team need to go to tech to implement a landing page every time they want to run a campaign or create a new button? That is one. The second is, does your marketing team need to go to the data team to get a data out? So if the answer to both of them is yes, then your marketing team is struggling right now in terms of the MarTech stack. A marketer should be able to visualize data, click on it, and execute a campaign using a channel, or personalize the whole experience. So that is the ideal state, and that is what I keep looking at, saying that, okay, we cannot automate everything on day 0. Let's do a Pareto attack. What is the 20% thing that we can do in terms of personalization or visualization, so that the marketer can then be efficient?
Absolutely. Thanks, Daman. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you. Thanks for taking the time out. Really appreciate it. I think this is going to be a super insightful session for everyone.
Thanks, Subra. Great talking to you as always.
Absolutely. Thanks.
Thanks.